Yeah, I am definitely an AI optimist. So I'm just going to acknowledge that I am biased. Yeah, I see it's AI in the same way. I think it is a great tool to help us spend less time doing the tedious things that don't really require human ingenuity or human connections so that we can dedicate more of our time to the things that we actually enjoy doing.
Welcome to Creative Leadership with Heart, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of creative leadership. I'm your host, Rico Nasol. Join me as we explore the transformative impact of heart-centered leadership in today's creative and design organizations. Hey all, welcome back to Creative Leadership with Heart. Today we have Jing Jin, one of my favorite design folks and someone I love chatting with. Um, she is a UX design executive. She's done work at Apple, Outschool. She's founded a startup in the past. She's founded a startup most recently. She's consulted. And that more recent startup, she is the CEO and founder of MindPals, which we'll get into a little bit later. But it's an AI coach that helps teens find their life's calling, which sounds amazing. So Jing, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your journey as a creative and design. What about design and creative growing up
Mhm.
made you know that or helped you find out that that was the career path for you?
Totally. So I actually studied computer science because I thought I didn't like people. And then I guess as I matured more, I realized I do like working with people. So I got a master's in human computer interactions. And especially when I was at Apple, I had a hybrid engineering and design role, and experiencing it in my career really made me realize that I don't like working in a room alone. And really, when I work, what gets me to get up and go to work every day is I know that I'm solving a problem for someone else. So that has always been the foundation of why I do what I do. I've as you said, held many roles in the past, and it's always because I wanted to solve a problem for somebody, and any skill set is just a tool that may or may not help me.
Yeah. So you say you started off in computer science. What is
Mhm.
the role UX plays in all of this? Because I think that's what a lot of people who listen, they're either in UX product design. So what's the role that UX plays, and what are some of the challenges you've had to face with that role?
Yeah, I think of UX designers as we're helping the users get to where they want. And sometimes what they want might be to accomplish a task. Sometimes what they might want might just be an enjoyable experience, and oftentimes it's a combination of both. And for UX, the problem we're trying to solve is figuring out what the user wants and helping the user even realize what they want, what fulfills them, and helping them get there.
Yeah, it's interesting, and maybe you've run into this before because people will say they want something, um, but when you ask and you do the research part, you
Hmm.
actually find out that this is just a symptom of something bigger that they'd want, right? Like, I
Yeah,
just wanna be able to cancel my thing, right? I
yeah,
just want
yeah.
but really it's like or our whole scheduling, canceling, onboarding flow just needs to be redone because like, they just don't know where to find the cancel button. So, usually a bigger problem comes out of like, this is usually a symptom of something larger.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like one of the most important skills of a designer, even more so than being able to create great mock-ups, is being able to ask great questions. Because a lot of times people tell you the solution they want based on their assumptions of the powers and limitations of your system. And those are often flexible. So for a designer, it's often like, okay, let's go back to the beginning and tell me like what motivates you to do this, how you feel about this, and then we can come to a solution together.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got a little bit into that. So what are some of the questions or what are the things you look for when you're doing this research when you're because oftentimes PMs or anyone will come to you like I just want to do this or this is what I'm trying to solve. What
Mhm.
lens do you use and how do you find the answers that you're looking for to really get at the root of the problem?
Yeah, I generally start with like, who are we solving this for? Who is this for? Why? How do we know they want this? Is it because of something you said, something you did? And based on that, kind of try to unpack anything that might be an assumption of ours. So try to go. I always try to go back to user data as much as possible, like specific observations of their actions or specific words they said, because those are facts that we can start with, and then we can try to interpret them and see which interpretation works. I've also found, once we get further into the creative process, especially when we're looking for feedback, it often helps to reiterate that user-centric view. So, like one framework I really like is to ask people to write their feedback under 4 columns. There's like, which is just what you like about this, because we should always celebrate what we like. I think there are many roles that are problem solvers, but like design is one of the few where you're also just trying to bring joy to everything,
Hmm.
including the process. So, what you like, what ideas you have that may just be like you will personally prefer this. Any questions you have, anything that could be confusing. And the last thing is like any concerns you have about how this might impact the user. And I found that just coming back to decoupling our own opinions from what we think users might need really helps us create better solutions and have a more enjoyable process getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that, like, and there's a good balance there. Because one of the things that people often, and I don't want to generalize, but what I've heard in my career is like, well, delight isn't a metric, right? So for you, how do
Yeah.
you see? I saw the like your reaction to it, and this is why I wanted to bring it up. So I would love to hear your thoughts on delight and how you balance delivering delight, but also like the core metrics for whatever business, whether it's conversion, retention, engagement, whatever it is.
Yeah, it is tough because it is hard to justify, and especially like as design leaders move closer and closer to kind of the business executive suite, you kind of had to do that translation with a business language. The way I look at it is it really comes back again to why people are using your product. So if you are a financial analysis tool for Wall Street, the reason they're using your product is because they want to do their job better. And there are multiple ways to give them delight. One of them is like, UI Easter eggs. Those are always delightful in the moment. But in this case, maybe the real delight is like being able to do their job really well and being able to show their, coworkers of like, hey, I did this really quickly. So there I think like delight may have a meta meaning of just helping them really reach their goals. And this is kind of how we think about things at MindPals too. We're trying to balance it. Haven't found the secret formula yet. I think it is always a work in progress. Because part of what we're trying to do is we're trying to help teenagers find really like what they want to do in the future that they would actually enjoy doing. So some of it is asking deep questions that require some work for them to think about, but it can't all be that because for them, they're engaging in this, they're choosing to engage in this, not because somebody told them so, but because they feel motivated. So there's also a balancing of like giving them more in the moment rewards so that they continue feeling motivated to do the harder work.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great transition. Thank you for that. So like even taking a step back, right? Using what we just talked about earlier is like how do you start the process? So what was the spark for starting Mind Pals? Like what was the gap in the world that you were seeing that made you go down this startup founder path again?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, before I started MindPals, I was like, I am never going to start a startup again until I'm rich enough to fund it. And now, like 6 months later, I'm here. So it actually started with my own experience. I was playing with ChatGPT when it first came out, just out of curiosity because it was like such a new technology, and everyone was saying it works way better than previous AI. And for me, so ChatGPT actually brought a lot of delight to me because one of my personal goals is to write more about my experience and share my learnings more with the world. But I think I just had this narrative that I'm not a writer, and when I was using ChatGPT, it made writing feel fun for me. It made it feel like a collaborative process rather than like something that's really hard that I'm not good at. And that's what inspired me to think about how can we use this technology to change people's mindsets about what they couldn't do, especially the things they think they couldn't do. And we went through a couple of iterations, and eventually, my co-founder and I decided that this like AI career coaching is a place where the technology is really good at helping you build different narratives about what you want to do and what you're capable of doing, and it's something that we both have some experience in.
Nice. Can you tell me a little bit more now about just what MindPals does? I know you're still in the early stages, so share what you feel comfortable with. But it'd be
Yeah,
great to kind of
totally.
hear how you're using AI and using it to leverage, uh, just leverage
Mhm,
technology to help teens and
mhm.
kids that are out there.
Yeah, totally. So, um, starting MindPals, I knew I wanted it to be some kind of educational tool for K-12 because I feel like that's, to me, that is the most fulfilling thing. Like I'm literally impacting anything in the future because I am impacting the generations that solve future problems. And as we're exploring the space, we heard from one thing we hear from parents is definitely like, oh, I need tutoring to help my kids like get better grades. And there are a lot of people doing that. So we felt like there were other places where we can contribute more. So when we ask about things that are outside of grades, one thing we frequently hear from parents is like, oh, my kid is really smart. They can do anything they put their mind to, but they just like don't want to do anything. And I wish they took more ownership of their future. And when we talk about kids, what we hear from them is like, oh yeah, my school has career quizzes and stuff, but like the careers are all really boring. It's like you should be a financial analyst or you should be a doctor. And they're just like, oh, cool. Like, well, if it's just like these few choices, I can think about it later. So there was like a disconnect between, what adults see the possibilities are and what kids have access to in terms of their options. And that's what inspired us to create MindPals. So we're an AI coach, which means we are a conversational app. We're actually function through Discord right now. And what we do is when kids sign up, specifically high school students, when they sign up, we ask them a little bit about what they're interested in. And based on that, we start recommending resources that might help them dive deeper into their interest. So if you like crocheting, we'll start recommending, hey, here's like a crochet tutorial or an idea for a project. And then we get their feedback about, did you like that recommendation? Was there something else that you were more interested in? And as the more we build an understanding of our user, the more we can guide them toward thinking even more deeply about, is this something that I'm really passionate about, like a hobby? Like you see my paintbrushes in the back, like doing painting is a hobby. I don't want to do it as a career, but I want to keep diving deep into it as a hobby. Or is it something that I might want to do as a career? And in my life, I wish I had mind pals. I didn't, but luckily, because of my interest in art, I was able, and my interest in computer science, I was able to discover the field of design because it's a little bit of a combination of both. So what we're trying to do through this interaction is to introduce these students to these resources earlier in high school before they decide their college majors, so they are very informed about what they like and what they don't like. So when they choose a major and then dive deeper into their studies, they have more confidence that this is something they're going to be using in their career.
Yeah, I wish I had something like that too. I mean, it sounds like this is like people think AI is like this big scary thing, but this sounds like a way where it actually can reinforce a child's love of creativity, a kid's love of creativity, because it gives you more options and it helps you like explore what you can do with these different skills, right? Like I had the traditional, it sounds like, I mean, I don't know if you did too, the traditional Asian, like you can be anything you want as long as it's a doctor, a lawyer, right? Right. Or a nurse or something like that. And so that's not mind palace for me. That was just like, you're already telling me I have to do these things.
Mhm.
Um, so I want to get into AI a little bit more, but just for Mind Pals, like where are you at? Like what should we expect? Are people can people sign up soon or is it going to be a while? Like what should people expect for Mind Pals in the future?
Yeah, we're currently still in private beta testing, so we're not open to public usage yet, but hopefully by the start of 2024, we'll be able to offer it more to the public. If you want to follow our progress, definitely check out mindpals.com. Um, I will add this. I
Yeah,
just realized I
we'll add
don't
the
have
links in the
this.
show notes too.
We'll
Send me
add
the
the
link.
links,
Yeah,
yeah, and
we'll
the
add the
ways to
links.
contact us.
Yeah, nice. And then so to transition, so I know this is something that you and I talked about a lot before, and I why I wanted to have you on too is what are your thoughts on AI? And a lot of people are afraid of AI. Like some people are like, oh, it's gonna take away jobs. My thoughts on AI is it's gonna open up create like the thing that AI can't do is human connection, right? So it can help give you ideas and do all those things, but storytelling and building relationships is something that maybe in my lifetime, but at least not in the next year or two. But I'd love to hear from you, like the AI, how AI is going to impact tech, and even more specifically, like just the creative sides of tech.
Yeah, I am definitely an AI optimist, so I'm just gonna acknowledge that I am biased. Yeah, I see it's AI in the same way. I think it is a great tool to help us spend less time doing the tedious things that don't really require human ingenuity or human connections, so that we can dedicate more of our time to the things that we actually enjoy doing. So I think like in a creative context, and I just did a panel at CMU or Carnegie Mellon earlier for the grad students there. People ask like, how should I think about like what I need to do because of the AI developments, and really, what AI could help us do faster, or we can delegate to AI as designers, could be creating like the pixel perfect mockups from the more creative wireframes that we have put together. It could be, gathering feedback and sorting feedback into different buckets so that we can analyze the feedback faster. I don't think it's even as far as being able to analyze feedback, but you can certainly sort it and tag it for us. And as a designer, like I said, like one of our greatest skills is asking good questions, and that requires a lot of intuition, not just about what isn't said, but sometimes even about the relationships between two people, right? Like when I'm doing research with kids, I know there is a perceived power dynamic. That the kids may not be super comfortable saying certain things. So I definitely ask more questions. Even when I get their answers, I try to dig into maybe there's something they're not telling me. Whereas when I am interviewing adults, there isn't that perceived power dynamic. So I really take my participants' cue about what they want to talk about and whether they want to move on. So a lot of this is still just you need that human mind to decide to decide what is the right thing in the right moment, and those are things that AI can't replace. And another way I think about AI is kind of like it's the way you use AI is kind of like managing a very enthusiastic intern who had zero experience in this space.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, so it will always require somebody who has that experience and knowledge to help direct it to the right place. And that comes back to why I'm an optimist. I think it will replace the tedious parts of being a designer. Like one of the things I hate is like going back to every single comment somebody made on Figma to say that I have addressed this and where they can find the design that addresses this. And I think that's something that AI can take care of for us. But I can't take care of the like, I have a problem. How do you solve it? That is still a very human process.
Yeah, I 100% agree, right? Like, I think people are afraid because they probably don't know the capabilities, have never worked on it before, right? So I've worked with engineers who've done like even computer vision, like early, well, I wouldn't even necessarily call it AI, but like early algos to analyze like imagery, UIs, and different things. And so I've had that experience. And so it's same thing. I'm seeing like, oh, we can make progress much quicker. And whether you're writing code or like designing or whatever it is, you can go through those iterations much faster, right? And it takes the mundane parts of it out of it, right? And even like going back to the Netflix context, where if AI can tag all this, you don't need manual taggers anymore to just like tag everything. Which, yeah, that maybe takes away somebody's job, but then that human can move on and do like the more human centered jobs as opposed to just like tagging things. So like I'm 100% with you on that. Like we need to embrace it and learn how to make AI part of our lives to make our lives easier. Not think it's just this big thing that's going to take away so much from us, because I don't think that's what the intent is.
Yeah, definitely. Even with the example you gave of like people who are tagging things, one of my friends works at an AI training company, and they do use AI to help them tag things, but they always need humans to figure out what are the right tags first. So we're like, even for something as simple as tagging, we still need a human in the loop to figure out what is the right thing. And once we, solve that creative problem of what is the right solution, then we can hand it off to AI to repeat.
Yeah, that's why I love your so the engineer I used maybe even a more rudimentary, maybe even more a reductive example because I like yours, the intern. He said treat AI like a baby. So like with the baby, you
Mm.
have to teach it how to walk, right? So you have to show it things and you have to teach, but it's just a baby that learns fast.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what he said. And like as the more you teach it, the better it'll get, the more it'll be able to run, it'll be able to do all those things. Um, so yeah, so thank you for sharing that perspective on AI and getting into maybe just your story. So what were some of the challenges you faced, if any, um, in your creative journey? And even taking that a bit farther, what advice would you have for folks that are thinking about getting into UX or like whether the UX is right for them, things like that?
Yeah. Well, oh, many. I think the thing that comes to mind first is that I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I used to think that getting better, being a better professional, being a better person means doing something perfectly. And now I no longer hold that view. But sometimes the old mindset still comes in if I don't pay attention. So I think that is something, especially I think for creatives who are trying to do this as a professional full-time job, that is really helpful to keep in mind. Like we probably got into this field because we were pretty good at something, like art, for example, for me, and we might think that to get better in this field it means to hone the skill to execute that piece of content, but a lot of times, I would say all the time, when we're in a job in a team, it's not just about what we do, but it's trying to help everybody get somewhere where they might have different, even competing perspectives, and trying to find kind of the middle ground where everybody gets their needs met. And sometimes that means not doing something that we think is perfect, but showing people something that we think is really, really bad and embarrassing, and so that we can discover more of the thoughts of like where they would like this to go. Because one thing I found is, if you show a design that is high fidelity, people tend not to give a lot of comments about big changes because and this goes back to like the power dynamics of then relationship dynamics. They might assume that it took you a lot of effort and they want to respect that, and they don't want to like have you rip everything apart unless it's a huge problem. But if you show something, the exact same design in a lower fidelity in the pencil sketch, people tend to focus on the bigger changes. And usually those bigger changes are what solves the problems that you're trying to solve. And I've had this experience in my previous co-founding experience where I was the only designer. And my co-founders always say they really like trust me 100% with design decisions. But every time I show them like, okay, I designed this, we're going to implement this, they ask so many questions about like, why did you do this and not that? Like, but what do we really need that? Like, what is this for? I'm like, guys, like I did that research. I talked to users. I thought you trusted me. And I had a mentor at the time. He was a director at Amazon for the Kindle, and he's like, we had the same problem at Amazon. So it's not just a startup problem either, because you're in a team. So your teammates want to feel like they're a part of the solution. And when you present something perfect, you're basically saying, I could do all of this without you. It's not very respectful, actually. You're not saving them time. You're making them feel bad about their job. And the truth is, they probably could have contributed something. And so the reaction you get is you have to walk them back all the way to the beginning, to all of your reasoning. And it feels like a waste of time. Um, so so he taught me that bringing other people in on the journey is just, it's not optional. There is no way to get around it. This is part of the work. And when I tried it with my co-founders, I didn't spend any more time because I had to explain anything the other way anyway,
Yeah.
everything the other way anyways. I didn't spend more time. They were much happier. They agreed with me more instead of challenging me more. And what I found personally is that for the percentage of time where they actually brought up something new that I didn't think about, that was like almost always an aha moment for me. Like something where I'm just like, oh, this is a key thing for our product. So coming back to just like being a perfectionist is not necessarily the way to become a better designer. It's actually bringing other people in more when things are imperfect.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people have this perfectionist idea, like that you can actually achieve perfection. And a lot of times, how it showed up for me with perfectionism is because I didn't think I was good enough. So like I would always say I'm a
Mm,
perfectionist. So it shows up for lots of people in different ways. But yeah, like bringing people along is like huge. Um, I used to go
yeah.
in and, just ask people, this is what to tell people what I needed and give no context. And like that's not the way to do it. Like bringing
No.
people in, having them part of the process, the way you talked about it. It sounds like, everything for you, like the big theme is like collaboration, right? And
Yeah.
bringing people in early and often is how
Yeah.
sounds like you found success in your career.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, right? Because I started saying like, I just want to work with computers, not people. And what I discovered is I actually really love working with people, and I want to work with people more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned I was gonna ask if you had like a mentor that or a group of mentors. You mentioned you had a mentor in Amazon. Is there anyone else along the way or any people like if you give advice to someone who should look for what they should look for in a mentor?
Yeah. So for me, I found that with mentors, depending on which stage I'm in life, and sometimes it's not even linear. Like sometimes I'm a founder, sometimes I'm a consultant, sometimes I'm an employee. Different mentors provided different types of help. So for me, like mentors are kind of like um, very context dependent. Mentors are good for one type of role or one life stage. Um, may no longer be as helpful for a different life stage just because their advice is something that's different than what you're using every day. For me right now, actually one thing that kept floating the top of my mind in recent times as I was like doing talks for other people is something Rico you said. And it's this thing you talked about how fear is just false expectations appearing real. Um, and that's something that's really relevant to me right now because as a founder, 99% of startups fail, and I'm doing this anyways, knowing it. And one false expectation for somebody could be like, oh, if I fail, that means I'm bad at it, and that's just not real. A lot of people fail. Another thing could be, if things aren't going smoothly, that means we're going to fail. That's also not true because most of the time things don't go smoothly. So that is actually something that has been top of mind for me a lot.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we tell ourselves if we let ourselves do it, we'll tell ourselves all kinds of negative stories that
Hmm.
will convince us not to do things. But you know, uh, most people will choose comfort over courage. You choose courage, which is great because then that's how you do great things. And I'm
Hmm.
excited to see how far you take MindPals because it sounds like I wish I had it as a kid. Um,
Yeah, same.
and
We're
so
just building
for
the world that we wish we had.
yeah, right. And I mean that's what anyone wants to do for the next generations, right? Like make it a little bit better, even
Yeah.
if it's 1% better, right? Um, and I know we're at time, but Jing, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is, linkedin.com/in/jingidi, JINGIDY. And please also send me a message if you want to connect on LinkedIn so that I know this is where you come from and this is, I would also love to know just like what made you want to connect based on what you heard from us here.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you again, Jing. I really appreciate you taking the time with us. That we're gonna wrap it up today. We will see you all in the next one. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you for checking out Creative Leadership with Heart. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed the episode. We have a lot more content coming out. So if you do subscribe, you'll get notified when we have new episodes. All right, take it easy. See you in the next one.